Hey everyone, Coach Dave March here, and here for another episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast. And yeah, if you're new to us here, I'm your host, Coach Dave March, author of the book Vision in Action, and we like to bring in a lot of visionary entrepreneurs, people that are really gonna be changing the game and doing things differently, as well as people that are great leaders. We love to showcase great leaders here on the Growth Mindset Podcast. And today we have our special guest, Basil, and he is the CTO of Arvist. And Basil, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience here?
Yeah, thanks, Coach Dave March. I'm very excited to be here and talk about leadership in today's world. So, Arvist is an AI company. We are revolutionizing. You know what I mean? The AI industrial space, and so we're basically trying to automate safety manager roles, quality manager roles, all using materials like CCTV cameras and sensors and warehouse management systems that are already inside of a warehouse to create not only the most innovational AI tool that can bring in the most insights of anything that's currently on the market, but also the cheapest. And so those two things at once, those two forms of innovation have presented a lot of challenges for us, but we're really changing up the game and excited to be around in the current market space. And we're also in a very interesting position, or at least for me, where we're seeing this exponential growth that I've been waiting 6 times for across my time as a startup leader, and I'm finally seeing my first company really starting to grow. So it's also a very exciting time for me to see what happens during this time in my life.
Awesome, exciting times, man. Cheers.
Yeah. You wait, part of being in startups, that like only maybe 5% of startups win. And so you're always rolling those dice, but you're also learning along the way. And so you're also increasing your odds just through your own growth. And so there's been many times that I've been presented with problems I didn't always know how to handle appropriately. But through those challenges, you come out stronger, just like when you're working out your body or your mind. And when you see the results of it, just like going to the gym and you're now lifting 5 pounds more, or you're presented an emotional situation and you handle it more maturely, it's amazing to see also in business when you're able to flow through those things without being completely handicapped.
Yeah, it's what reminds me of like that Kaizen methodology. 1% better every day, and really that makes a big difference. People typically think I need to make huge strides every day, and if you do that, you're probably going to be burnt out. So just those small, consistent steps every day, that's what really, makes things grow. 1% better every day. That's all you really need. So as we talk about, leadership and how you're, growing this organization, what do you think the most like impactful leadership ideas or concepts have been that you've either learned or applied recently in your business?
So I work as a CTO, so I work primarily around developer teams. But one thing that I've found through my growth, where before I was very focused on architectures and stacks, especially as my role grows out, understanding more how to inspire teams along business goals and what are the rewards from that, whether that be financial, raises, growth, and team, more team members to help delegate to, and helping them see the bigger picture of that. If we help the business get these sales, there are rewards for us too. But also in their own developers' own capacity. So I will say firmly, every single master's and PhD level person, we work in the AI space, very mathematical field, has not made it at Arvist. The people who have made it have actually been people who come from arts. So one of our lead developers, he was actually in the Chicago Orchestra playing the French horn, and was playing for operas and like movie instrumentals, and so, or their soundtracks. And he's one of the greatest developers we've ever had. He went to a 3-month boot camp versus many of the people who come from super academic backgrounds haven't necessarily made it. And I think a lot about, when we are hiring, and some of the, and I'd say the great deal of success we have had in who we've continued to retain on our team. What skill sets do they have? They came from arts. They have empathetic reasoning skills. They have personal discipline, and they don't believe in like the pride that you see from a lot of highly educated people, which I think is so important. And that's also something I try to take in. Is I think a lot of today's CTOs believe that they are CTO because they are the best programmer that's ever lived, because they only code their whole life, but they never spend any time developing these more pure leadership skills of developing good culture, of developers overworked, realizing that they are not a conveyor belt, right? And there's not always input output, that it is, this blend of scientific reasoning with like art and composition, right? You're actually writing code. People hear that, they think that it's super mathy, but it is like a form of writing, and there are many ways to solve a specific problem, and some more elegant, more poetic than others, some more straightforward. And so I think another big skill that I've been able to develop is telling people when to back off. You're going to come back the next day, and it's just going to come to you. You're experiencing writer's block, right? And so not to say holding back velocity, we're trying to move at an extremely fast speed, and we're trying to dominate the market quickly, and those are very, real ambitious goals that we share. But sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to take a step back, and those are, I think, very advanced CTO skills that I've been just starting to really unlock in my life, of when to do that appropriately, that I'm very proud of.
I love that. I love the idea that you're employing more the creatives. Those are my people. I love the artistic, creative bunch. They, they can think outside the box. They can think innovatively. And I think that's what we need more now than ever, especially with invent of AI and everything. And yeah, I mean, when you were talking about the idea of like, being very mathematical, music, it could be kind of like a numbers thing. Like, I know some rhythms are like, if you do some rhythms are like, that's a 4/10, or that's a 4/6, or the 4/8, like different types of rhythms. But it's more than the numbers on it. It's almost like, the idea that the sum of its parts is greater than the parts added up.
Absolutely. One of my favorite books is called Gödel Escher Bach. I've been in music my whole life, and so maybe I have a little bit of an affinity for artsy types, but it's no mistake that there is this correlation between art and science and math. And so this book, Gödel Escher Bach, explores the mathematical beauty of Bach's music, and how you would play a scale forward and then inverse it and play it backwards, and it sounded like a whole different movement of the song, but it was actually just like this mathematical beauty. And then Escher, who's the artist who does all the recursion type art, with the staircase and you look at it from another angle and you're like, this doesn't make sense.
Oh, yeah, those are cool.
And then Gödel is a very famous mathematician, and he just shows all of art and math from this angle that kind of brings it all together. And you realize that, like, musicians are a form of mathematicians. They might not even see, they feel, and that in like our brains tend to think about those things in technical terms naturally. I play. I was a trombone jazzist in high school and early college, and I moved to just playing guitar. A lot of like pop punk kind of stuff. But and so those obviously are a little bit more simple than classical. But I've gotten to a point where, like, I'll play something and you feel it, but then you look at what you wrote and you're like, this actually has a makes sense on a scale, and I never had to think about it or write it down. And that's the kind of the technical intuition that you see in development. People who understand just how to write it and don't overthink it and make these elegant coding patterns. I don't think that there's a mistake of people who try to overanalyze also that would be great mathematicians or physicists, but don't necessarily succeed in the velocity and intuition that's required to be a high velocity programmer.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really great point. And also going to your point of, these really highly technical people, in the sense of, you know, you can get someone that is kind of like the Brad Pitt of, coding, but then you also have to deal with all the, you know, the things that suck about Brad Pitt. That you would have to deal with every little kind of Madonna moment that he would have, right? Because he has this big ego, and he has this like big thing, and it's like, well, I'm the best at this, and you can't critique him because like, well, obviously he's Brad Pitt. There's nothing that you could say what he does wrong,
Yes,
and it's like, that doesn't really lead to a collaborative environment where you really great leadership. That's really what it does. It creates a collaborative environment where everybody's voice can be heard and can really contribute to the overall project.
absolutely. And what's the worst about that is what it does to that person. Now, Brad Pitt, I guess I can't really judge him as Brad Pitt. I mean, whatever, you get to that level. I'm no one to say, but for developers at least, and people professionally who have like very high level
Yeah.
skills, there's a difference between confidence in your abilities and holding yourself back from your own growth because you will not take collaboration and notes from another person. I try to enable. I call it horizontal leadership, and I talk about that a lot. That I serve a specific role in the company, but I want to be told when I'm doing things wrong, and I want to be held accountable. And I also, want to give notes freely to people. And if they don't take that well, if they take that with pride to the point they can't grow from it, then I'm like, you're actually not as great as you think. And we all have special skill sets that we can benefit from, where those can be professional, emotional, technical, all these different things. People will all, have a natural attunement to give each other notes on how they can improve if you have good relationships with them. When you do that, you not only hurt the potential of those relationships with people, because people naturally want to help build and grow with you. And so like you're creating negative experiences for coworkers, you're creating negative growth for yourself, and you're kind of just stuck flatlined. And it's like, is this the best it really gets? If you really believe that there's no way that not even other people can help you grow, but there's no way that you can grow. Well, how sad is that?
Well, especially on the Growth Mindset podcast, we don't like that at all.
Yeah.
we like to grow, and as you're talking about these different strengths and skills people have, what comes to mind is personality types. I love different personality types, and I get, of course, really big into the ideas on Myers-Briggs and psychological types, which is the theory Carl Jung made that created Myers-Briggs. But also, book you may know of, it's called Please Understand Me by David Kiersey. And he uses all the Myers-Briggs types and then connects them to temperaments. Have you heard of this before?
I have not, but I'd be very interested to learn more.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So he uses all of the same Myers-Briggs types that we know and love, and then he connects them to the temperaments that have been going on for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years now. So you have someone like a ENFP or a ENTP, which would be a champion and an inventor, and then you, instead of looking at it from the perspective of the Myers-Briggs, which is more subjective, you're kind of having a point of view that's only really you can talk about in the sense of that person's perspective. But from the David Kiersey's point of view, you look at the same exact type, but you look at it in terms of what are the observable things that are different about this type. And so What's your type, by the way?
I kind of go between INFJ and ENFJ. I'm very like amnivert. Like I feel
Yeah.
like my battery can sometimes refill by being social, but when I want to be alone and do my thing. But I definitely have strong theories of like strong feelings of like intuition and justice. I'd say. So what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm the ENFP ENTP kind of type myself.
Isn't it
Yeah.
interesting how like your kind of mood can kind of change it, right? Like you can't do it too often to really see because like there's some things that kind of like I don't know short term change. Like they say that you're true, so I think it has more to do on how you choose to answer the questions, and there's no way to really like dissect your brain and know how you really feel. But they say they're permanent. But I feel like sometimes certain things do kind of change from time to time, and but I mean I'm a very like we're dynamic creatures. Maybe something good that we could counterpoint to your book is I read a book, Quiet, and it's about introverts and how in the workplace and school and in anything that involves collaboration are often seen as less smart, and you see them very rarely in executive positions. And how people who are extremely extroverted are indeed more likely to make rash decisions, to talk loudly and face the repercussions later. And a lot of the reason that introverts don't talk isn't because they're incapable, but because they want to make sure that the facts are correct before they speak. We see this, a ton in politics and celebrity culture of just people getting fact checked and they don't really care. They just move on. But the people behind the scenes who you're supporting those people, their marketing advisors and such, they might take a more introverted role. But what we see is they get promoted a lot less. They're seen as a lot less because the extroverts are the people who naturally take the leadership roles. And so they're not talking as much. They think it's because they're incompetent. And so in development culture, that's obviously super relevant. You got a lot of introverted, analytical thinking people and
Hmm.
trying to drive culture in how can we make these people feel comfortable in communicating and expressing themselves with the skill sets they have and the things introverts tend to be very good at in decision making and not let them be underrepresented in our high level strategies.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, there's two things I could actually talk about with that. The first would be a different look on the idea of introvert and extrovert. Um, but of course, a lot of people talk about it as a way to how do you get back your batteries or drain your batteries or charge your battery kind of idea. But another way to look at it is instead of it being an adjective, looking at it as a verb. So in the sense of like it's something that you're doing. So introverts actually have they typically like to focus more on depth than on breadth. So there's more depth of thought that an introvert has. And when an extrovert, they more have a breadth of thought, more wideness of interest and wideness of all these things. So it's more about the way that they're choosing to use the energy. It's a direction of energy. So it's really an action more than a adjective because it's you're choosing to put your energy more internally and introverting than to be more extroverting. Um, so
That's
yeah,
extremely interesting. Depth versus breadth. Would you say you think more in depth or in breadth?
I'm a more depth guy. Even though I'm an ENFJ, ENTP, I'm more depth. I like depth. I like
Mm-hmm.
going deep into topics. Yeah.
There was a professor my senior year. We had to do this like final essay thing, and it always stuck with me. She said that there are small people and big people. There are people who want to go and see everything in the world, and they want to do everything, and they want to be president of the United States, and nothing can stop them from pursuing these huge dreams. And then there's small people who want to build a family. They want to have intimate relationships. Um, but she said that both those things are very powerful, potent lifestyles. They just represent different wants and needs. And it kind of goes in with that, like depth versus breadth, and what somebody wants out of their life also fits into that. Because, there's a saying, that a teacher teaches one person who goes off and, inspires this kid, and then they go off to, maybe they become another teacher, and one of those kids becomes a teacher, maybe three of those kids become a teacher, and there's 500 kids that have been influenced by this one person. And a lot of times we have this mentality of being an executive or being a celebrity is the most influential path in your life. Even raising a single kid and being a good father, like that influence and impact is changing the world for generations, what you do right then and there. And so, like, the depth versus breadth conversation, I think, is really potent there because of that. Like, we don't have to chase the world to change it, or we don't have to chase everything in order to change it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you can go really deep into that, and you could say, you know, the the journey, or the I should say the revolution of one individual can affect the destiny of 1,000 individuals, right? So it's like, I think that sometimes we don't recognize the importance of one. Like, one person can do so much, and yeah, I mean, it just depends on their depth there.
I've been
And then the second thing.
Oh, sorry, I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, yeah, no. Then the second thing I was going to say is, which we're kind of circling around. I don't know if you realized it, but there's this topic called psychological safety. Have you heard of this topic before?
No, I haven't.
It's something that we're circling around. I think it's really important too. If someone doesn't feel safe in their surroundings, and it could be that, going back to the example before, some coder that feels like is really sharp, and now that you're trying to tell him, it's just some simple feedback. Hey, you could do this and that better. He's feeling like it's an assault on him. Now he's feeling he's going to retract, and he doesn't feel safe anymore. So psychological safety is something that is also an important leadership concept, and it's about creating that environment where it's okay to make a mistake. It's not all about compliance, and this is a big concept in leadership, because a lot of people will feel like, well, I have to listen to this boss, and if I don't listen to him, and if I tell him he's wrong or something, I'm gonna get fired.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like one of those surveys. It's like, what are your thoughts on this particular person? Oh, I think he sucks. Oh, okay, you're fired.
Yeah. But I mean, and it seems like it's almost like movie, like Doctor Evil level responses. But you do see those in the real world, and they're really people who, can't lead emotionally. All right, and that's a very common trait in the professional world of people who still, a lot of, family friends, or acquaintances of mine, and they even talk about work, and they're like, I did nothing wrong. And this person, the second you see somebody point the finger, and then they're about to divulge into the story, I'm like, you're gonna say something that is very obvious to me that you did something wrong in the handling of it, but you hide, and it's really like if we're talking about emotional safety, which I think now I'm tracking, it comes down to like being fearful and avoidant of those feelings. They can't actually process them, and they don't feel safe with them. So instead, their kind of safety room is, I did nothing wrong. Nothing I do could ever possibly be wrong. I mean, how many people do we know like that just default to, I never can do wrong, until they're crying about it? And it's like, the proactive, mature approach to that is first accepting that, let's start with me, right? And what could I have done better? And that unlocks so many feelings of relief. But the people who are locked into that are you on the inside. They're trapped in guilt, and that's the saddest thing. Is like everybody I know who is started with those stories, you can see behind their eyes the guilt that they're holding back, but they're too scared of actually being weak, and they're too scared of growing through this experience.
100%. He had it right in the head. There. Well, we're really growing minds in this podcast today, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like there was something I was going to say, but now I can't quite track it. Do you have any other notes or topics?
No, that was it. I was going to end it there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was a great talk about something in the professional world that we really don't talk about much in like emotional leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, but that's a great ending point right there. If you have any final words, or you have any ways people can contact you if they want to learn more, please shout it out, and we'll end this episode.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dave. So our company that is transcending logistics using AI, you can, if you'd like to find out more and that interests you and you're in that vertical, you can find me at Bazyl, Bazyl, at arvist.ai. So arvist.ai. Yeah, and I'd be happy to walk you through what we're serving.
Awesome. Well, you definitely are leading people in the right direction here, and I think you're going to do great. Thanks everyone for your long attention today, and we are out from the Growth Mindset Podcast.
Thank you.